Okay, we know who Knox Alexander is now. We know who Isabel is now. What about Hildegard?
Ha! Hildegard, my grandma. No. Every time I do a wine tasting in Germany, there'll be a little old lady walking up to me and go, "Oh, look, you're making wine for my name." And I'll go, "You're Hildegard, aren't you there, darling?" And Hildegard was the wife of Emperor Charlemagne.
Yeah.
And she's the woman that either truly or apocryphally planted white wine grapes for the first time or made him plant white wine grapes on the hill of Corton. So Corton Charlemagne, which currently by law in France has to be 100% Chardonnay, for 1,000 years was Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, and Aligoté in grape composition. So when I found that out, I actually planted those grapes in white soil here in front of my winery. Now muddy brown soil because of all the rain that we've had, but in white soil, well-drained white soil. And I'm making a wine that could be, if you factor out the existence of Louis Pasteur, the way wine might have tasted 1,000 years ago. Who knows? We don't have that many laws in California, which could be a good thing, can be a bad thing. When you have a lot of laws, what do? You flout the laws.
Yeah,
you try to avoid them, you lie, and you say you do. Yeah. And if you don't have laws, then it gives people with honesty and credibility the chance to do something really good, and they're never prevented from doing that.
Right.
And then people that are hopefully less oriented aren't unmasked by the law, they're unmasked by the marketplace, which is where I think people ought to be caught these days. I think certain producers should release their wine, have it go to the marketplace, sit on shelves, and never be bought. Unfortunately, it never really happens.
It never really happens.
If you lower the price enough. Was $35, now $9. Made by recently incarcerated winemaker for violating all health codes. Yeah. You know, we have a whole lot of different price points, and always have had. You know, always made regular wines. The regular wines are the basis of what we do, and so that would be the regular Santa Barbara County Pinot Noir, which is a bottle. In this case, this is a slightly different version of it because we just ran out of the 04 Santa Barbara, but that wine sells for about $20, and we're currently on the 04 Chardonnay. Santa Barbara County would be the generic blend that we make that's almost 10,000 cases in production, so widely available. You could actually find that and buy that. 2004 vintage, about 20 bucks. We make a wine out of Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc every year. That wine's about $18 a bottle. Here's the 2004 that's available. Then we step up into some more expensive wines. I mean, I'll give you an example over here. Here's an estate-grown La Beauce de Sceaux, and these are grapes that I planted, and that's hence the estate bottled on there. Planted here at Bienesito on land that I lease, and the 2004 vintage here is a wine that's about $30 a bottle, and pretty widely available. We make a good amount of that wine.
Actually, Jim, I gotta ask you real quick. You know, you can see the produced and bottled by, and then mined behind.
Mined behind. That's my corporate title. My corporate title is, you know, you could be owner proprietor, you can be owner winemaker. You know, you've all met Jim Edelman, who's general manager of the winery, and
yes.
And Jim has his hands on everything now. And I used to have my hands on everything. We had the company until 1991 and didn't have any employees in the company. There were 3 active partners that were working together. Jim was the first person that we hired full-time to join us for the company. And quite frankly, every time I've worked for somebody else, they have tried to take my job away from me. They try to claim credit for what I do. So I didn't want to put on there owner winemaker, and I didn't want to take credit for things that Jim does or Enrique does or any of our employees. So I put mine behind on there because no question the buck stops here. I'm the one who organizes everything. I'm the one that picks the products I'm going to sell, the price points I'm going to sell them at, and I take the responsibility if something flops in the marketplace.
Yeah, passing or failing.
I'm the mind behind, but I'm not the hands on everything.
Okay.
And so that says that on all the bottles. And we talked about, when we were walking through there, we talked about the wines named after my children. Knox Alexander, baby blocks. Knox is 6 years old, but he might have the baby blocks on until he's 18 because he's a beautiful child. He has a wonderfully relaxed personality, but he's very immature. 2003 vintage. Would sell for about $45.
Not necessarily reflected in the wine, by the way.
No, and if you don't like the wine, don't tell him. You can tell me. I'm mature enough to deal with that. A new project that I'm doing with my wife, and we have actually everybody's name on there. So we've got me, Morgan, my wife, Morgan Clendenon, Isabel Clendenon, my daughter, and Knox. Is called Clendenon Family Vineyards. And what this is a small winery within the bigger winery. This happens to come from Le Bon Climat vineyard, my own vineyard that I planted in 1998, where I actually own the land and own the grapevines and wires and the trellis system on top. Yep. And this is a $50 bottle of Chardonnay. It's a selection. In this case, we made a selection of less than 4 barrels of the 2003 Chardonnay out of everything that we grew, and it's a much leaner, lower alcohol style of wine. What I'm able to do in this small winery within the winery is take the things that I still believe in here, but I've had to commercialize to a certain degree. I have to make wine that people want to buy. I don't want to make wine that only people want to buy and I don't want to drink myself. So I'm not chasing points from critics. I'm not chasing a style of wine that's not my own personal style, but I admit that grudgingly I've made these wines probably a little bit more generous than they would be otherwise. The great thing about this brand is Clendenon Family Vineyards allows me to make wine that appeals to me completely. Lower alcohol, higher acid, more European complexity in the wine. Nothing to do with the big fruit bombs that are so popular in California right now. And that's probably more than anything.
You just answered the question I was about to ask.
I mean, here's an example right here. Here's a wine made from Nebbiolo that I grew, that I planted here at Viennacito back in 1994. This is a 2000 vintage, and its current release is a 2000 vintage. I can only afford to do that because I'm only making 150 cases of this wine, 6 barrels of this wine. I kept this in barrel for 4 years and in bottle for 1 year before I released it, just like I was making a Barolo Riserva in Italy or a Barbaresco Riserva. And it's that kind of thing on a small scale that people accuse me of being so large now that we no longer can do. And in point of fact, I started this company to prove that not only can we do it, we will do it. And I don't believe there's anybody making a small amount of wine in California making wine any better than our Clendenon Family Vineyard series. But simultaneously, I also believe that even though we're making more of these wines, that's actually a benefit for the consumer because they can actually find the damn bottle.
Exactly.
You know? How many times you read an article in a popular wine magazine and they tell you about something that you're not wealthy enough to buy, and if you were wealthy enough to buy it, you still couldn't find it anyplace. That's one aspect of the wine business that I don't like so much, that mystique-oriented sort of
lack of accessibility.
Wearing a tuxedo and prancing around a fine dining restaurant and trying to talk you into a $2,000
and only telling you about stuff that's actually allocated only to that restaurant.
Yeah. And to go with your $35 steak.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be able to do things with this that we can't with the rest of the brand, but I'm still very proud of the quality of wine that we're putting out on this level. We now have 30,000 cases of wine available in 15 countries besides the U.S. and all over the U.S. And I believe each one of them is of the same quality as when I made wine back in 1982, and I only made 1,800 cases. I would argue actually that it's better because we have better grapes, better equipment, and I'm older and more mature, and I probably come to the winery more now than I used to then, even though I travel a lot, because back then we were always looking to have a good time.
Well, then you also mentioned you're sourcing from different land now.
We are, and as this area has grown a little bit older, we've been able to source better fruit, we've been able to have more maturity in our vineyards, and we've been able to figure out how to replant if we're going to replant, and I think we've done a good job at that too.